Hey, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me, Dorothea, on Through an Orthodox Christian Lens. It is September 11th, 2025. Busy day, so I wasn't able to come on until now, but we're going to go over the newest update on the St. Catherine Monastery in Sinai, that issue. And then I'm going to talk a little bit more about the blood moon prophecy that was brought up the other day in my last video on that. Okay, so let's go to the first portion here, and let's see. Jerusalem Synod accepts Archbishop Damianos' resignation from Mount Sinai. Now, he is 91, and probably would be good to step down and retire as best that the one can do as a bishop. The Holy Synod of the Patriarchate of Jerusalem announced yesterday that it has accepted the resignation of His Eminence Archbishop Damianos of Sinai, ending a tumultuous period of internal conflict at St. Catherine's Monastery. Yes, well, that was good for him to do that, because you don't want to keep that conflict up. So I will give kudos to him for doing that. The 91-year-old Archbishop will formally step down on September 12th, so tomorrow. The Synod's decision comes after he failed to appear at a hearing in Jerusalem on September 8th, choosing instead to remain in Athens. In its statement, the Holy Synod noted it had taken into consideration the decision of July 30th of the present year by the Sinai Brotherhood regarding his removal from the abbacy, as well as the official petition of July 31st, based on the canonical offenses into which he had fallen. The Synod voted unanimously for his disposition. His Beatitude, Patriarch Theophilus III, citing Archbishop Damianos' latest declared letter to resign on Friday, September 12, 2025, and his advanced age, decided that the Archbishop will bear the title of former Archbishop of Sinai, Pharon, and Ratho, or however you pronounce that, effective from the resignation date of September 12th. The Synod described the Patriarchate as showing generosity, love, and understanding, even in moments of disturbance of ecclesiastical order, and called upon the Sinai Brotherhood to proceed with what is required in accordance with the canonical provisions and its venerable tradition. The resignation comes amid a severe crisis at the 6th century monastery, including an Egyptian court decision from May that threatens to convert the site into a museum, and internal divisions that saw 11 monks expelled last week. The conflict has drawn in major Orthodox patriarchates, with Constantinople supporting Archbishop Damianos, while Jerusalem backed the expelled Brotherhood members. So this is the full statement. The Holy Synod of the Patriarchate of Jerusalem was convened today, September 8, 2025, in due canonical order, awaiting the presence of Archbishop Damianos of Sinai, as was previously demanded according to his canonical rights and obligations. However, having already departed and residing in Athens, he did not appear. The Holy and Sacred Synod, having taken into consideration the decision of July 30th of the present year by the Sinai Brotherhood regarding his removal from the abbacy, as well as the official petition of July 31st based on the canonical offenses into which he had fallen, unanimously resolved his deposition from the throne of Archbishop of Sinai, Pharon and Ratho, determining that his designation henceforth shall be former Archbishop of Sinai, Pharon and Ratho. Interesting, they're saying canonical offenses. That's pretty important. So I guess they are going by what the Brotherhood had said. The monks. His Beatitude, Our Father and Patriarch Theophilus III, having taken into consideration the latest declared letter of Archbishop Damianos of Sinai to resign on Friday, September 12, 2025, in order to facilitate the procedures for the election of a new archbishop, thereby practically demonstrating his deposition toward the normalization of the functioning of the Holy Monastery of Mount Sinai and the proper canonical conduct of the election, as well as his advanced age, in a spirit of love in Christ and respect toward the departing hierarch. His Beatitude decided that the designation former Archbishop of Sinai, Pharon, and Ratho shall take effect from September 12, 2025. The Patriarchate, as a loving mother and nurturer, has shown generosity, love, and understanding, even in moments of disturbance of ecclesiastical order. His Beatitude, as a compassionate father and patriarch, primarily cares for the safeguarding of the peace and unity of the Church. Therefore, the Synod prays fervently for the departing hierarch, that he may be granted long life and every blessing from the all-holy and life-giving tomb of our risen Lord Jesus Christ, and calls upon the Sinai Brotherhood to proceed with what it is required in accordance with the canonical provisions and its venerable tradition. Well, okay. So, we shall see what happens with whenever they get the new bishop in, and we hope that that goes well. I think that is, as it said in the note, that it's going to lessen the tensions in the monastery, and I just hope things go in the right direction. I don't see why they wouldn't, but it was good to have that update. I wanted to share it with you since we all been kind of been following this story for quite a while. Now let's go to actually I don't have that particular thing up right now, but as you recall, I had talked about the blood moon in a couple of videos ago, because apparently there was a blood moon, like a lunar eclipse, I think it was called, September 7th and 8th. And there's a prophecy where after the blood moon, everything is supposed to start to take place as far as Greece and Turkey. The provocation about Turkey crossing those Examelia miles, basically seizing 3 islands. So I think I was wondering, I didn't say, I said, well, we can't really be sure if it's this blood moon, because there's so many blood moons that actually happen. It's not a once in decade or something like that. They happen every few months. So I believe the next one is in March 2026, and I said it's always possible that the March one could be the sign of starting of this issue with Greece and Turkey, which, according to some prophecies I read, is I just saw today that when Turkey attacks Greece, that's the start of World War III. However, Elder Joseph of Vatapuri is saying these phases of World War III have actually started all the way back in 2008, when Georgia and Russia had that conflict. So the reason why I was feeling like, well, I don't really know if it's the blood moon, this blood moon, because of other prophecies. So I had these ideas of, I tend to fall into this whole thing of chronological events in these prophecies, and my older son always reminds me that, Mom, they don't have to be in that order. It could be out of order, in different order. But I will go through with you on why I was thinking that is because in Elder Joseph's piece here, he talks about so if you go back to the first phase, as I said, it's the first war is between Russia and Georgia. It happened in 2008. Russia will be challenged again by Georgia, and this time Russia will destroy it completely. And we're knowing that doesn't mean that means the upcoming one, as we can tell. Again, Georgia is Americans' embankment to delay the Russians so that America and Israel can attack Iran undisturbed. So this is, as you know, there wasn't an attack back at that time, as far as I can recall. Now, however, Putin declared that by attacking Iran, he is seizing Georgia. Let me get rid of this. Which is strategically a critical point, as we said. Unfortunately, and of course, it goes on about that, but it says, unfortunately, the civilian casualties in Georgia will be terrible as long as the Russians are fighting there. The Ukrainians will be incited by the Americans and will create strong provocations against them. And we know that has been going on since, well, actually, really since 2014. This is what we found out by reading the news articles on the persecution of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, that it's actually been going on since that coup of 2014 that happened, that NATO and the U.S. was involved in. So that's, if you go by that, 2008, 2014, you go up and up and up, and you see that that's happening. And, I kind of, again, I'm doing this chronological thing, but let's go on. And so then, in the next portion is, let's see, did I miss something? Okay, so this is part of 1 again. Turkey will then allow American ships and aircraft to pass through the Straits of the Hellespont and from her national airspace to strike the Russians. This is interesting because this has not happened yet. Now, it's interesting that the countdown for the Turks will begin. So here, Elder Joseph is basically saying, he really is saying, that it's that move by the Turks where they're allowing the American ships in to this area to strike Russia is when the Turks' countdown began, meaning the future war with Turkey and Russia. So the Russians will very soon occupy Ukraine. Now listen to that. So if you go chronologically by what I'm saying here, what I'm seeing here, then you will see the Ukraine issues there, but you'll notice that the Russians will very soon occupy Ukraine and will be enthusiastically welcomed in the cities. If you go through the events this way, well, we could see that actually happening. And then over Ukraine and the Black Sea, the Americans and Russians will fight for the first time air battles, and the Russians will prevail overwhelmingly. So all of these things are yet to happen, but seem right on the cusp. So we don't know when that's going to happen. In the next few months, I keep hearing from analysts that Israel is going to strike Iran before the end of the year. We also know the prophecy of the Ukraine-Russia war, how that's going to end in 3 Paschas. Elder Jonah had said it'll be after the 3 Paschas that this will happen. We've had the 3 Paschas, and then we have the monks in Ukraine that said, basically half a year after the schismatics and godless people take over the Lavra caves, then Ukraine and Russia will liberate the churches in Ukraine, and the war will end. Basically that's how this chronologically is what I'm understanding on these, because there's so many different prophecies that I'm trying to work together here to figure out. So then we see that after that issue, or that little battle between the Americans and the Russians, that air fight over the Black Sea, and there's a bunch of stuff going on in the Black Sea, in the Baltic Sea, I think, and even in the Arctic. There's a lot of tensions going on between NATO and Russia. And then, of course, this new thing going on where Russia supposedly, their drones went into Poland, although I have heard from analysts that I've listened to that there were no weapons in the drones to shoot off any type of lethal weapons, and the numbers kept changing. This is why many of them think this was a false flag, because there's the information is not firm. It's all over the place, and so it's believed that either Russia's coordinates were off and they made a mistake, or it was a false flag. So you all can decide on that. But right after, it says here, right after these battles in Turkey, a dictatorship will have been imposed. So here is the time when we have discussed what happens to Erdogan. I want to give you a little reminder on this particular part where Metropolitan Neophytus had said this about what's going on with that area, with Turkey and Israel. Let's go over it one more time. I'm going to read it to you. He says, first, there will be a great bloodshed in Syria. The Israelis will strike Iran's nuclear program. Yes. Okay, so if we go by that, the first bloodshed in Syria was in 2014, around that time, somewhere between 2013 and 2015. They are already preparing for it. And let's remember that he said this in December 18th, 2024. Okay. Either before or after this attack, Erdogan will fall. Obviously, it'll be after, because it's happened. But let's recall that I'm wondering, you know what? This just came to my mind. We say that we say that Iran has, it's when Iran strikes, when Israel strikes Iran's nuclear facilities. But you see the order of this, things come to me. You see the order of this, how it is from Elder Joseph, is saying, Metropolitan Neophytus just said, this will be the time that they strike Iran. Let me see that again. So either before or after this attack, Erdogan will fall. If you coordinate that with, or correlate that, and go with what Elder Joseph said here in phase 1, they're saying, remember they said, to delay the Russians so that America and Israel can attack Iran undisturbed. Now, I don't know. I think this says they haven't really done it yet or something. So this is it seems to me this is more of a future thing. It has not happened yet, okay? But then we go into the next portion, as we said. So before they strike Iran's nuclear facility, according to Elder Joseph, this stuff is happening with the Black Sea, with, Turkey opening the Hellespont for the American ships to strike the Russians. And then the Russians will very soon occupy Ukraine. Okay, so this all seems to be right on the brink of happening. And then, again, in Turkey, a dictatorship will have been imposed. So when he says before or after this fall, this is kind of interesting, because then in the second portion it says at the second phase here on Elder Joseph's, it does say, let me bring it up for you. It says, an attack by America and Israel against Iran is imminent. So, it seems to me that in this particular, the way these phases are going, it sounds like Erdogan is going to be out before the attacks on Iran. If you're looking at it chronologically. But what I'm saying is, I'm not sure you could do this chronologically. It may be a different order. It doesn't have to be exactly this way. Obviously, it could be other things happening before that, or out of order. However, I was just thinking of the blood moon, like I said, and I don't see how the Turkey and Greece thing can happen, it just seems like that doesn't happen until later here. And there's this other stuff going on before that with, Albanians, Croats, Bosnian Muslims, Americans, few NATO members against the Orthodox of Russia and Serbia. Again, the Balkan issue, which we all expect that to happen soon too. So, this blood moon, I mean, if it's only concerning Greece and Turkey and not the rest of what's happening around it and other events that are going on at the same time, it could be at the same time. So perhaps the blood moon, and then that starts all these other things, and then the Greece-Turkey thing. Or maybe next March, after these other things, the blood moon, and then the Greece-Turkey thing happens. You see what I'm saying? So, because there's this issue here, like I said, this particular portion that I don't think we've seen totally of yet. Right now, Erdogan is considered one of the world's great leaders. The President of the United States even said about him, he's a smart guy. That's what he called him, smart guy. What can he do about it? This is how things are in our times. Whoever holds military power prevails. He also commented that Erdogan succeeded without much bloodshed in taking Syria. Yeah. Now, essentially, he legitimized him. I would use another term in modern Greek. He emboldened him and even praised him. Okay, so let's go on. Okay, let's see. He did this deliberately to provoke Erdogan into starting a war with the Kurds now. Okay, so yeah, the Kurds now. So that would be the next thing with Turkey and the Kurds. We gotta add that one. Gotta add that one in. The Kurds and Turks battle or whatever, conflict. Then the Israelis are looking for allies. They feel that their main allies in the Mediterranean region are the Greeks. Both in Greece and Cyprus. And in the east, it will be the so-called Kurdish state. Remember, the Kurds are a people of 40 million. The U.S. is promoting them, and eventually there will be a clash between the Israelis and Turkey. Exactly. So, has there been a clash yet, or is there just tensions? I mean, it's really close to that in the Syria area. Again, this is all part of this the WWIII prophecy thing going on. What does the U.S. want? They do not want to lose Turkey from the Western Bloc under any circumstances. However, they want to control Turkey. Can they control Turkey with Erdogan in power? No, they cannot. So they find a way to remove Erdogan, because Erdogan is centered on this resurgent or revival of the Ottoman Empire. I was just reading about that with the Syria thing going on. So his view, his goal is not the same as the Western countries and the NATO countries. And this will indeed happen. Those who come to power after Erdogan will be pro-Western and fiercely anti-Russian, and that's when the Turks and the Russians will get into a clash afterwards. So, to try to wrap all that up with all of this information, it's possible, just go with me for a minute on this. It's my own brain working here, but since the Israelis really didn't hit the Iranian facilities, because they were way deep underground. They only hit like surface stuff that wasn't that big a deal. Perhaps that wasn't the actual real hit on the facilities. Perhaps that was just a touch on it, but you know what I mean? Maybe it's their second time that they're going to be doing this, the second one that's coming up before the end of the year. That could be what Elder Joseph's phases, or the way he was speaking, maybe that's what he was talking about. So somewhere in there is the blood moon, somewhere in there is the Balkan conflict, somewhere in there is Turkey opening the Hellespont for the American ships to strike Russia, the Americans and Russians having dogfights basically with their jets, and then the pro-NATO people taking over in Turkey. And so there's a lot of moving parts to this world war, which I think that's the case for any world war we've had. There's been many, many different elements to the war. There's different areas, different issues, different battles. So I hope that helped. I hope I didn't make it more confusing, but I just wanted to just go further along on this whole blood moon thing. I was a bit short on the last one, and I didn't get, and sometimes I think things and then I forget to say them, and then I'm like, oh, I should have said something, but I definitely said it this time. A lot of things happening right now. The Poland thing with the supposed false flag or mistake by Russia, they're going to run with that. The NATO people are going to run with that so that they can have an excuse to continue their war with Russia, since the Ukraine one is winding down. Just keep watching and seeing what's going to happen. Just wanted to share that with you. Share the update with the St. Catherine's Monastery in Egypt. Hope you got a lot out of it. Hope it was informative for you. Hope it got your brain working like it did me, and all of these things. And if you think it's informative and worth sharing, please share with others. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for following my channel. Like my videos if you'd like to. I think that helps my algorithms for my videos, my channel. But thanks so much. I hope you have a blessed evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are when you see this. Until next time.